With 2017 well underway now, I thought I'd take a few stabs in the dark and attempt to predict what this year will look like for video games from the biggest publishers out there. We'll be mentioning some announced projects and guessing how they'll play out, but also making some assumptions on unannounced projects that could potentially exist and the excitement they might bring to the gaming space. We're going to start with Ubisoft. Now, Ubisoft tend to announce most of their new projects at E3 in June, so I'd expect we'll see a full array of announcements there. The most obvious contender for 2017 is a new Assassin's Creed. The series took a much needed break last year, with each new game feeling like a mod or reskin of the last. The rumours say that the next Assassin's Creed game will be set in either historical Egypt or a Japanese samurai period. I'd be on board with both of those, to be honest, but I'd love to see the game running on a new engine. Syndicate, whilst fun, began to look very dated compared to other releases at the time. Perhaps the Assassin's Creed team could take the fantastic Snowdrop engine developed for The Division and adapt it to their game design instead. And speaking of The Division, a sequel on the cards maybe. I think we could definitely see a teaser for The Division 2 at E3 this year. In terms of other action games, I reckon it's about time that Sam Fisher made a comeback in Splinter Cell. It's been a while and I don't see a Rainbow Six sequel being announced so soon, especially as they're still working on new Season 2 content for the game. I think it's a safe bet that we'll see a new Splinter Cell title this year, as well as a new Far Cry 2. It would be cool to see the series revamp and reinvigorate itself. A couple of curveball announcements from Ubisoft could be showing Beyond Good and Evil 2 gameplay and finally getting a release date for that game, and also perhaps some kind of wicked sick VR experience for the PlayStation VR, Oculus and Vive could be on the cards set in the Assassin's Creed universe. Moving on now to EA. It's going to be the year of Star Wars. With the new movie out this year, EA and Disney will want to push Star Wars hard, and we already know that EA have 3 announced Star Wars games in development: Battlefront 2, or whatever it's called, the Visceral Star Wars game, and most recently announced another one from Respawn Entertainment. Battlefront 2 will be developed by 3 different studios: DICE, Criterion Games and Motive. I'm guessing that DICE will work on the multiplayer, adding more depth and content to the game for launch as it spans across multiple eras. Motive will work on the single player campaign component. If the single player is multiple eras too, that could perhaps mean that we'll see a Battlefield 1-esque war stories kind of thing going on, but instead it's called Star Wars Stories. See what I did there? And Criterion, well, they made the excellent Rogue One VR mission for PlayStation VR, so perhaps they're working on more VR content for the game, or even just the space battles. I for one would love to see more in-depth space battles in Battlefront. Perhaps EA even will announce a new Rogue Squadron game, and that would go down a storm with the fans. As for the other 2 Star Wars games, not much is known about them, and the rumours say that the Visceral game could be an open world third-person adventure, kind of like a Star Wars version of The Witcher, potentially starring Han Solo as the main character. And the Respawn game would be more third-person action orientated with big set pieces. That's what the studio does best after all. Look at Titanfall 2 single player and of course the iconic Call of Duty 4, which a lot of that team developed. I don't think we'll see a new Battlefield title this year, but EA have stated that they'll put a lot of energy and focus into Battlefield esports. Not much is known about this yet, but I guess some kind of exclusive Battlefield 1 game modes or even a BF1 expansion spin-off title that's well suited for competitive play. We'll get the usual FIFA and Madden updates of course, probably a new Need for Speed as well. And now a couple of I kind of want these to be true predictions. Medal of Honor makes a comeback and heads back to World War II. We all remember how good Allied Assault was back in the day, but can that be recreated in 2017? A new Dead Space title from Visceral Games would be welcomed as well, but with them focusing on the Star Wars project I think that's unlikely, but I wouldn't be surprised if the series eventually makes a comeback and returns to its splendid blend of survival horror action that the first and second games pulled off so nicely. Next up, Activision, Destiny 2. Please, please, please bring the game to PC, Bungie. Destiny 2 will be bigger, prettier, and I hope will run at 60 frames per second on consoles. Rumours say that the sequel will offer a much more open world approach to missions, where you'll land on a planet with your squad and move from town to town brimming with NPCs and characters, accepting missions and going on strikes without any loading in between. Realistically, will we see a PC release of the game though? Well, I hope so, and I think so too, but I reckon it's going to be a delayed release, maybe coming out a year after the game releases on consoles. That's the most likely scenario in my head. And Call of Duty from Activision, of course. With Infinite Warfare not resonating with fans last year, Call of Duty needs a shake-up, and Activision have just announced that in 2017, Call of Duty is returning to its roots, and you can view this in a couple of different ways. If you recall, COD started out as a World War II game, and it was a World War II game until Modern Warfare hit the market. So does that mean roots as in we're saying that the 2017 COD will be set in World War II? Well, there are already rumours it will be, but we can also look at it in this way. It's returning to its roots in terms of gameplay. So that means boots on the ground, no more wall running or jump boosting, returning to gun-on-gun combat and taking away the emphasis on kill streaks. I for one would love to see COD go back to that style of gameplay, although it has to be said for me, that type of gameplay just isn't as exciting as it used to be, and I think a lot of original COD players have now moved on and become bored with the addictive kill, die, rinse, repeat mentality and are now looking for more variety and open space in their gameplay sessions. Next, Take-Two Interactive and 2K Games. I'm putting these in the same place because I basically see them as the same company. Red Dead Redemption, obvious one, we'll probably get to see lots of new gameplay at E3 this year, and it will more than likely blow everyone away. That Rockstar quality continues to shine through and grow. I think we'll see a new Borderlands game too. It's been a few years and that series has lots of dedicated hardcore fans, and with Battleborn being a bit of an experiment and failing, I doubt we'll see that series making a comeback. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a new Bioshock game this year too. It's about time, and although Mastermind Ken Levine has left the series, there's still a rich amount of content and gameplay to experiment with there. New stories and new characters in that rich steampunk environment. Believe it or not, it's been nearly 4 years since Bioshock Infinite was released, and that game was incredible. It would be a shame to leave the series behind. The question is though, who will develop it? With Irrational Games closing and the IP left to 2K Games, it seems that they might have to handpick and build a new studio to put another Bioshock game together. An announcement for XCOM 3 I think is a given. XCOM 2 was excellent and a fan favourite. I can easily see it coming back in the guise of XCOM 3. Another big publisher is of course Bethesda, and I can see several huge announcements coming from their pre-E3 conference, if they do it again this year. I think a new Elder Scrolls is coming, and I hope it's returning on a new engine. There won't be another Fallout title so soon, and let's be honest, Skyrim with all its faults and bugs was an epic and fun game to play when it launched in 2011. Hours upon hours were spent trouncing and fuss-rodaring around Tamriel. Oblivion before it was also very good. It's time, Bethesda, let's go back to that universe please. I think another Doom reboot sequel will be seen this year too. Look at how good and successful the Doom reboot was. It blew everyone's expectations away. Most were thinking that with all of its development problems it would be a big stinky pile of doo-doo. But in fact, Doom turned up on many Game of the Year lists. It was certainly one of my favourite single player experiences from last year, bested only by Titanfall 2. The multiplayer was kind of average, but the campaign was a throwback to FPS games of old. Waves of different enemies coming at you, and big fun guns to use that all felt different. The graphics and performance were sensational too. It's a no-brainer really that the studio will be developing another Doom and continuing the story where the reboot left off. And what about Wolfenstein 2, another classic FPS IP owned by Bethesda, and Machine Games under their banner did a fantastic job with that reboot in 2014 with The New Order. Time for another one of those please. And a curveball for Bethesda, Evil Within 2. I actually quite liked the original game. It received mixed reviews, but the hype was real for that game and it had a unique style to it. A sequel is definitely on the way. Wrapping things up for today, I didn't want to include Sony, Microsoft and Nintendo. I think Sony have already announced most of their upcoming projects, as have Nintendo. Xbox not so much, but with the Scorpio on the way this year, E3 will be a big chance for Xbox to prove that they've got a strong lineup of first party titles like a new Halo, Forza and Gears of War to get most people on board again. And if the specs of Scorpio are everything that they're cracked up to be, then potentially we could see some proper native 4K games. Finally, a couple of new games that I would love to see. A new Batman game from Rocksteady Studios. They did a fantastic job with the Arkham trilogy. I played all of those games multiple times and you really felt like you were the Dark Knight. A new Batman game from that studio could be incredible on new technology. And dare I say it, Valve and Half-Life Nah, I'm only kidding. We're not going to see Half-Life 3 this year, but how about Left 4 Dead 3? I think that's much more of a strong possibility. There's been game files and rumours for years now, and it's about damn time that Valve released a new game. Apparently they're working on 3 full virtual reality games too, and it will be interesting to see how those pan out for sure. So that's all for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed my 2017 predictions for video games. Let me know what yours are down in the comments below. What would you like to see announced or released this year, and what do you think are the most likely possibilities out of the games that I just mentioned? Hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed the video, a thumbs down if you didn't. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.